All right, 8 a.m. on a Thursday morning. We're so excited to be here with you guys. I see you guys coming on in. I know people are going to join us in and out throughout the day because we're virtual today, all day until 3 o'clock. So, yeah, here's our agenda. Welcome to our inaugural ACE Mastery Summit this year, presented by Vote-HOA-Now, which is so exciting. We have them featured today on the very first panel. We get to talk about some really amazing technology and emerging trends. But before we get to that, I just wanted to give you guys, I see you guys still trickling in. I just wanted to give you guys a very brief intro about what this event is, why you're here, what you can expect from the day. We had such a successful and exciting time hosting all of you from around the state last summer through our webinar series, and we really wanted to bring a virtual event that could encompass all of our audience and really bring you guys into the fold of some of the amazing things that we as ACE get to learn throughout the year, including this very first panel, Technology and Emerging Trends. We also have an amazing cost savings panel that's coming up next. I believe that starts at 10:30. And then later in the afternoon at 1:30, we have a legislative process and current update. So these are not your typical CEU credit style conversations. This really is more of a conversation. So we're bringing the experts to you guys today throughout the whole day to talk about the things that are kind of, on the outskirts of just the learning objectives we usually get to hear about through CEU. So we get to talk about more exciting, interesting things that are happening right now, things that are happening in the communities that you guys are servicing. Hopefully you get a lot of value out of the day. We will be sharing all the sessions on our website, probably next week. But when you're here live, you also get to hear our overtime session. So stay tuned after the event with Jeff this way. There he is. He's going to be taking some of the questions that you guys submitted upon registering. You guys get to get into some really good conversation and just
Marcy
talk
will
about.
join us too, because Hotwire's
Marcy will be
doing that for.
joining just right for this session afterwards. And so with that, I'm very, very pleased to introduce this panel all about emerging technologies and trends. Probably the panel that I'm most excited about personally, because I've been learning about technology and emerging trends for the last 10 years in real estate. And this industry is really starting to take off in this arena. And there's some real not just interesting conversations happening, but a lot of questions that come up, sometimes without that answer. Sometimes the answer doesn't exist yet. And so just being able to have conversations with these experts, it's going to help us think about some of these things that are happening, some of the new technologies that are being implemented, and what are the questions we need to be asking, whether it's to our attorneys, to the insurance companies, to the engineer. How do we implement this technology? Your CAMs. So this is that conversation, and I'd love for everybody just to give a brief intro, maybe starting with Cathi, if you don't mind, of who they are and what we're going to be talking about.
Good morning, everyone. Cathi Sleight with Vote-HOA-Now. You would think that, online voting and everything is new, but I am getting ready to celebrate my 10 years at Vote-HOA-Now this year. So that's how long it's been around. Talk about an emerging technology. Before that, I spent a lot of years as a community manager. So I feel like I learned everything from the ground up, and hopefully all the information we share today will be helpful to you.
Thanks, Cathi. And I bet you've seen a lot of progress over those 10 years in the technology and updates and changes. So we're excited to talk about it today. David, how about you?
David Riddle with the Falcon Group. Way of introduction, the Falcon Group is an engineering firm. We're headquartered out of New Jersey, support most of up and down the East Coast. Several offices here in Florida, but we're recently expanding west to Texas and Colorado. So we help people put the infrastructure in place to be able to implement the new technologies.
Amazing. And last but not least, Anthony.
Morning. And man, I'm so excited because first off, huge fan of Cathi and David. And both of those companies are some among my favorite. But my name is Anthony Lugo, and I'm with First Service Residential. First Service Residential is a community management company, and we manage many communities here in North America. And one of the things, I'll say this, we're broken up in 3 segments. We manage everything from high rise to lifestyle communities, which is 55 and better, and then condo HOAs. And so we love our residents, and we want to do what it takes to help navigate them through the craziness and the ever changing technologies of the world in order to make life simplified for their living experience. And so that's who we are as First Service Residential.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I think to Kathy's point, technology has been around for a long time, and technology, even for our industry, has been around for a long time. It's been iterated upon. Some of it is today a little bit more easy to use. It's more adoptable. So we get to talk about it, with some real kind of purpose in a way we may not have been able to in the past. But the thing that really makes technology work for communities, the stickiness of that technology, is the education around using it, and the communication to, hey, as an association, we decided to invest in this new technology to make your life better, make things easier, communicate easier, whatever it happens to be. And communicating the value of that and how to successfully use it is that winning piece. And so I really want to talk about education and communication to kind of kick off this conversation. And so, Kathy, I'll kick it over to you first, but how are you helping CAMs and board members get comfortable with some of this new technology?
Mhm. Well, you said it, Marielle. It really is education and communication. Webinars like these where people can come and listen to the industry experts talk about their experiences, helping our owners find resources like webinars or documents or articles or anything that they're looking for to educate themselves. It's always board always wants to bring something new to the community. They want it to be a good investment. And so they want to talk to other people, maybe references, resources, that type of thing. The best thing, of course, is to find someone who understands the industry. So, having a vendor who understands the industry, has worked in it, can really be helpful to those managers and board members.
And not just the board members, right? But it's the residents. And so communicating oftentimes directly can be challenging, but what are some of those ways that we're, able to effectively communicate to the homeowners or to the residents? Kathy.
Right. Well, when I was a manager, talking about it openly at the meetings, having articles in the newsletters, spinning a positive, tone on it, like this is going to help us achieve quorum, something we haven't been able to do, talking about the challenges in the past and what this new technology is going to bring to the community. We talk about all the time having a duly elected board to conduct the business of the association. And so these are some of the technology things that are helping us do that today.
Well, and good technology should, kind of like Anthony was saying, it should make life better. It should make it more frictionless. And so that learning, that change management part can be difficult, challenging, but the idea is to make it ultimately easier. Anthony, how about you? How quickly are some of these communities embracing technology?
Yeah, so it's one of the things that communities are constantly changing and people are constantly changing. You notice people today are moving more frequently than they have ever before in years past, whether it's for a change of scenery or, a change in cost of living and adjusting lifestyles. And so we've seen people really adopt it, one, because we're having younger people become qualified to purchase homes or purchase condos. And so we're seeing, one, a generational thing, but two, we're seeing lots of people change the way they communicate these technologies. And so, for example, we found out in 2019 that 80% of people prefer to bring in information, to obtain information, to learn something over video. Over video, 80% of people would prefer to watch something or experience a webinar like we are experiencing here together and going through together. People prefer that versus reading. Now, that doesn't mean reading isn't important and writing isn't important. The reality is you can't have good video without writing, right? And so they're both needed, but we're in this beautiful place right now in the world where writing and video and really obtaining information. But to your question, so how are people obtaining, this information? With the invention of the phone and really coming into emerging technologies, we're seeing people learn very, very fast. Once a phone came out, it's incredible. It's a multi-generational experience. A cell phone with a glass touch screen. People know how to click, pinch and zoom, scroll, go to YouTube, go to this webinar, right? There's lots of ways that people learn how to communicate, and they've really made it simple to do so. Now, what the challenge is for all of us who have had, traditional experiences of teaching, have to adapt and to make it easy and to make it fun and to make it desirable. And I'll say this last piece. Sometimes new technologies can be scary, but for me, I love to talk to somebody or work along somebody who's been there before. And so when I talk to people like Cathi, and I'm like, Cathi, I don't know about this online voting. I don't know if Vote-HOA-Now, I don't know if people do it. And I love how Cathi comes alongside me. She's like, I've been doing this for 10 years. Let me show you the awesome results. Somebody who's calm, who's been there before, really helps bring technology to all people. And so instead of being afraid of like, oh, this has changed. I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I could trust that, and what do you mean I just click and I'm done? No, that's what technology is. It's supposed to make life simplified so that, guess what? You can go on to living and enjoying your life. And so I'll say this, communities and residents that we manage have been very quickly adopting it because, again, from the generational, and two, because everyone can operate a cell phone. More people are on laptops than ever before. They have access to the internet. And so we really are at this beautiful place where we're seeing more and more people adopt it. Now it's up to us and to other, vendors and to other people to make it easy for people to obtain. If people already know how to click on a video, then maybe we should put out a video and saying, hey, here's how our service works, or hey, here's how we can make your life better. Or, maybe it's in person and us working side by side, hand by hand, handling these technologies. So yeah, anything we could do to remove the fear of these technologies makes it easier. But man, I'll tell you what, people are fast learners. I never underestimate people. When I see somebody, upper in age, I won't quote an age, but upper in age, and they turn over their phone showing me something on YouTube, or they're like, watch this app, look what I can do. And I was like, I don't even know how to do that sometimes. And listen, and I'm pretty good. But when they are showing me things, and so I love it. There's a lot of wonderful things to like about what's happening in the world of technology. And the more we embrace it, then the more it can make our lives easier, which means we could get on to living, spending time with our families, with our kids and grandkids. So yeah. I hope I answered that.
Yeah, some excellent points. So many excellent points. I think, the notion of technology traditionally being intimidating rings true, I think, probably for anybody who's ever tried to implement a new technology, whether it's in your home or a community. And just kind of overcoming that perspective to say, okay, this is here to help me. Somebody made a thoughtful choice to invest in this. Let me at least give it a shot to learn. I mean, none of us came out knowing how to use a smartphone, and look at us now. A lot of us are banking on our phone, we're ordering food, we're, on FaceTime, all those great things. And I think to your point, it's not restricted to one generation that knows how, has a fluency of technology. I think it's a common misconception. Excuse me. Some of my favorite times are when my mom or my grandma are bringing me, hey, did you see this new app? Or did you know you could do this when you're presenting on Zoom? And I'm like, no, I've never heard of that before. That's unbelievable. And they're sometimes more savvy with this stuff than me. And David, I'd love to kick it over to you because you really cater to a lot of clients who are looking to implement technology. I mean, how quickly are your clients embracing?
I think instead of quickly, I would use the word steadily.
Mm.
We're talking about the age, and looking around the panel. I think that I'm maybe the senior person. I'm working towards the end of my 4th decade in this industry. and the growth that I've seen in technology. Many years ago when I first graduated from college doing heating and cooling loads, I remember when that first became computerized. I didn't trust the computer, so the first time I did a computer load, I also did it all by hand and compared them and went, oh yeah, hey, this stuff works and it's faster. And so the changes that I've seen through the years, and so I haven't seen any real leaps, in year by year, but definitely very, very steady. And the time that we see it the most is when, our clients are looking at infrastructural renewals, especially for some of the older buildings down here in Florida that have been around, since the 60s, 70s, um, around the same time as I've been, and they need some of this refresh. And so that's when they start looking at implementing some of the infrastructure updates, some of the electrical system upgrades. For a good example, in the 1970s, an individual home would have a 100 amp panel, and that would be great, no issues. Today, a single family home couldn't survive on a 100 amp panel. We have so many other electronic things out there and drawing so much power, we can't do that. So I think, we're seeing it very, very steadily as far as the infrastructure growth. Now, on the other side, what I call kind of the soft technology, the security systems, the fire alarm systems, those kind of things, that we do see, building control systems, those we do see those more on a regular basis, not just at infrastructure upgrades. So again, I would use the word steady
Like
instead
it.
of quickly.
Yeah, I love that. And I just want to mention, as you guys can see, these panelists are really, on top of what's happening. They're even, currently a couple of them at an expo in DC bringing, new info back to their clients. But these guys are out in the field. They're, their sleeves are rolled up, getting dirty with these clients, understanding the challenges that they have, the things that they can do to step in and help them make them more successful. And so I'm really, I'm really pleased to have you guys all here today. And we'll see that throughout the whole day. We have a lot of not just amazing service providers and experts, but we also have a lot of users, CAMs, board members who are going to give, real case studies and testimonies to their experiences, excuse me, implementing a lot of these things. So,
And if I could, Mary, I'll jump in real fast. I'm going to tag team. Almost forgot tag on something that Cathi said, talking about your vendors. When it comes time, some of the difficulty with technology is understanding the benefits of it, understanding why we want to do this, and even some kind of the how. Don't be afraid to ask your vendors to come out and meet with your board, meet with people. That's, I know as a vendor, I have had many a town hall meeting, and again, happy to do that, to be able to help with getting your unit owners to understand why it makes sense to do this. So don't be afraid to ask that question.
awesome. That's
Yeah, I
Marcy.
agree.
Yeah.
And we take every opportunity that we can to help educate by, offering to teach classes, running webinars. We have a whole resources section available. And we're going to these trade shows to listen to the owners and the managers, because they're definitely going to come to our table and they're going to say, how does this work? How can I sell it to my board? And we always say, you don't have to, we will. Let us invite them to some educational opportunity so that we can share what we know and talk about resources and where they can find these things, whether they're a reader or they're a video person. Making all of those options available is just great for everyone.
I think you touched, right on something so important, Cathi, and it's really the difference between having to sell something and just educating on something that is a value add and helping people understand how it's going to serve them. And it is a big difference. And I think that's what you all do so well, is that education. Let me help you understand, this technology and how it can help, service the ecosystem of what you're looking to accomplish, and help paint that picture versus needing to sell a new, hardware or software or something like that. These are really value adds. And they're things that are naturally, being asked of you. Like, David, we have electric vehicles, that are on the road. How do we get them into our communities safely and manageably? Cathi, we don't want, we don't need everybody emailing or raising their hand. We need digital voting. We need communication that's, suitable for 2025 and give people the tools that, make a difference in their day. So I do want to talk about some of the common misconceptions because I feel like we can get under the hood a little bit of really what your clients in the communities are struggling to understand about new technology. So I'd love to kick it to Cathi. What is, a common misconception people are having in implementing online voting or really any online communication system for that matter?
Yeah. They don't know anything about it. That's they have their idea of how they think it's going to work. Typically, we're finding there's an older board seated always in a lot of these communities. They've been on the board, they haven't been able to get off. They're, been appointed for 10 years or something like that. And they're afraid to make a decision to move to technology. And I think we find one of the most common misconceptions is that people can't do it. But really, voting is so very easy. And most technology, like Anthony said, we're, a few clicks on your phone and you can be watching a video, a few clicks, on your computer and, sitting there, looking if they have the time to read that information and, so make their selections, submit their ballots, get their questions answered, and we're always worried about this older group. Well, they have cell phones, they're doing their banking, they're watching their investments, they're, looking at everything. They will be the first ones to tell you they don't have an email, but yet they have a phone. And we know that everyone with a phone has an email because it just naturally goes together,
Right.
so kind of talking through those things and making sure that the managers can talk about it with knowledge at the meetings so they can answer all those questions or have a place to go for resources.
How about David? I mean, you help clients, make new technologies like electric vehicles usable in their communities. What are the common misconceptions, some of the common misconceptions, because I'm sure there are many, um, that your clients have about how easy
I
that
think
to implement?
the biggest misconception is that it's simple and straightforward. Especially, like using the EV chargers as an example. You think, oh, hey, I just, go plug the car in, or, so all I have to do is provide an outlet, or, hey, we'll get fancy, we'll put one of those charging stations in, and, we just have to wire that in and life's good. Well, there's a lot more involved in that. Do you have enough power to actually be able to do that? If you don't, how do we resolve that? And then, touching on some things for your last panel of the day, legal issues. We have a fire department, or I'm sorry, a condominium association down here in South Florida that will not allow their unit owners to charge their vehicles in the parking garage. It has to be outside. And if you do that, what do your bylaws and your condo docs say about it? And so, every time you get something done, then something else, there's a lot of little other things that come up that you're like, oh, I didn't think about that. And so that to me is probably the biggest misconception is that we need to, it's simple, but you really need help along with it to make sure that you're addressing everything that needs to be addressed, and you don't get to the end of the day and go, oh man, we didn't think about that. Or worse, you upset your unit owners because at the end of the day, you're able to put in one charger, but if you'd worked with someone that knows what's going on, we could, do load shedding technologies and be able to put in multiple chargers. So that's kind of probably the biggest misconception is that it's a simple plug and play in any of the technology. And I think we've kind of become accustomed to that in a lot of our software programs and things like that. But when it comes to infrastructure, a lot of times we have to be very careful of what technology we're overlaying on our existing infrastructure.
And I think it makes sense that you think, okay, well, I can go buy or lease this kind of car. And so why wouldn't it just work in my home or work for my life? Right. It's as easy as that. So I think this is a topic where in a lot of cases there are more questions that emerge than there are necessarily answers. I mean, people like David, you're an expert, you're dealing with this, but you're a little bit, you guys in the Falcon Group, you're a little ahead of the game, and probably amongst the handful of people who are really active in dealing with this specific new technology and implementing the infrastructure behind the scenes to make it work.
And I would say another one, Marielle, that another misconception is if I ignore it, it will go away. I'm seeing that as well. If I don't deal with it, I won't have to deal with it. And
Yeah.
especially things like EV chargers, but it applies to other technologies as well.
Sure.
You're just understand that unfortunately you will have to deal with it.
Yeah. Especially at an association level, or when you're
Mm.
dealing with, part of a larger community. Absolutely. Anthony, are you guys dealing with any, issues relating to EV charging, confusion in your communities, or are you seeing any of this play out?
Yeah, 100% all over the United States and Canada. We're seeing it, understanding it's one of the fastest, and really one of the fastest technologies. Now, one thing I'll say as a misconception for any management company out there, they don't know everything. First Service Residential, we don't know everything about EV charging. We look to partner with companies like the Falcon Group and to get their input, to have them come do a study for us to understand, are we able to put charging stations at every parking space, or are we able to do it in this common area, or why can't we put it in the very last parking spaces as opposed to the power source, which is the building right up front? Like, what's the logistics of that? What's the cost? And so what's great about our position and what we do is we know we're not the experts, but we do know where to find the experts, and we do understand our clients' budgets. And so, there's lots of different options and opportunities, but when it comes to really partnering with the right company, it's about understanding and being in alignment with our board members and being in alignment with the mission that they're trying to do this year. Now, EV technology, and there's a lot that goes with it. And it's different for condominiums than it is for a lifestyle 55 and better single family community. And then it's going to be different for condo HOAs. Part of it, the reason is because the way properties are deeded, in a condominium, some condos have one parking space, two parking spaces deeded. Some of our high-rise building, there's all different stipulations. Some people can sell a deeded parking space over time. And so there's lots of different logistics that comes with that when it comes to the high-rise world. And so in the high-rise world, there's some communities that have opted to put, really, charging stations right in deeded parking spaces only. So that way the community as a whole wasn't fully paying for, the common area charging station. There are some board members who have the genuine concern of, hey, I don't have an EV charging vehicle, and there's 4 or 5 people, or maybe there's 20 people that have EV cars, and now we're talking about putting a EV charging station in our common area right by the front of the building. Well, I don't know if I want my association fees to go to that. These are real conversations that we have every day. That's not, I mean, this is a very normal thing. Now, what the right answer is, it's different for every community. Every community has a set of priorities. They have a set of feelings about it. Some are, really forward thinking and saying, hey, we want the smallest carbon footprint. So we're putting solar panels on the roof, and we want, to have, zero emissions on the property. And that's their goal, and that's what they're aiming for. But one of the complications and one of the things that we've seen is it's a conversation that can't be ignored. You have to have it. And then it has to be communicated, which that was something that you had mentioned, has to be communicated well to the rest of the community. Because, if people see, hey, there's an EV charging station, oh, and my association fee went up $10, it must be the charging station. And the reality is no, we were actually underfunding the reserves, and we needed to do that before the charging station, and we allotted for that. So really, it's communicating. So when it comes to EV charging, one, it's a serious conversation that boards should be having, depending on the size of community. If it's a lifestyle community or even condo HOA or high rise, recommending getting an ad hoc committee to work with an engineering firm like the Falcon Group, who can then help write the RFP to make sure that we're finding the right electrician to partner with, to making sure that quality control is done. And I'm sure David can speak way better to that, making sure the installation is done, they're doing their punch throughs and things like that. And really the goal is after that is to communicate it. If a decision is made in the world of EV charging, you have to communicate it, and you have to communicate it well. This is where doing a video, putting out flyers, getting multiple emails, campaigning for a decision that's made. Here's something that's really important. If you're making a big decision as a board member, and hey, by the way, CAMs, this is really important, making sure you are campaigning for sponsoring new technology that's coming to your community. It's not enough to do this thing and be like, everybody's going to love it, because the reality is everyone thinks differently. You can't guarantee that introducing new technology like a charging station is going to make everyone in the world happy. It's impossible. But if you can campaign it and show how it's a help to the community, if you can campaign it and show people, look at, we're reducing the carbon footprint, we're able to offer this, and it helps homeowners who've decided to go with an electric vehicle, it really is, it helps the conversation better. It helps having less angry people show up to a board meeting. It makes really the transition of emerging technologies easier. So one of the things I'll say is, when it comes to EV charging, yes, I think it's something that all communities should have, understanding the dynamics of what people are choosing to drive and the things that we're seeing on the road, very prevalent, whether it's Tesla, Rivian, probably shouldn't call out car names, but look, you guys know who they are. But what the reality is that when you are doing something important, like bringing an EV charging station, you should be campaigning for it. When you're bringing someone like Vote-HOA-Now, and it's new, it's different, you should campaign for it for 30 days, once a week. Say, hey, we're excited to bring this new technology here to our community. You don't even have to get out of your pajamas, right? Like, you can vote anywhere, anytime for, in this window, or whatever the parameters that the community agrees upon, but it should be campaigned for. It should be often and regular, because what are the chances of people seeing your first 2 emails, right? Sometimes you got to say it multiple times, and a really good campaign gets neighbors talking in a great way. And so really being creative in that front too. So, but yeah, so that's what we're seeing just all around. Anything that we campaign goes way easier than just saying, hey, we're doing this, and, take it or leave it, like it or not, we're in charge. No one likes that feeling. They want to feel included as a part of it, right? And so campaigning it, really welcoming people to the decision, saying, hey, we're starting an ad hoc committee and we're opening it up for volunteers. If you're passionate about this, come and be a part. Come and see what we're about to do, and really have the conversation with the Falcon Group, with the experts. So, yeah.
I think that's incredible. What a great point, and what a beautiful way to relay how to get that emotional buy-in and investment from your community, and hype them up, get them excited for these new choices, right? For these new tools. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, the worst is when you're talking to a neighbor and they're like, I didn't know we were doing that. Well, no, like I get, isn't it crazy when people are like, I didn't know, we can do that. Like, one of the funny examples when we were talking about parents and technology, or grandparents and technology, I called my mom the other day and I'm like, Mom, what are you doing for dinner tonight? What you making? And she's like, oh, Uber's going to bring it. I was like, what? I was like, yeah. She's like, I love this restaurant. I wanted a soup and salad. I didn't want to leave home. And the moment she said that, I was like, she's gone. This is it. Technology's taken over. She's gone too far. I love the fact you did that, though, because it is easier. she was able to stay home, you know, and that's what it's about. That's why we bring in new technology to make it easier. You know, when somebody wants to come home and charge their car, they don't want to have to go to to a charging station in the middle of nowhere that they don't trust. They want to be home. They want to go
Right.
up and enjoy living. So yeah.
Right. Amazing. Some excellent points. I want to stick on this topic for one more minute, which is kind of this like challenges and misconceptions before we move into like the case studies and success stories, which we're going to get to. But are there any other kind of challenges in implementing technology overall that you guys are seeing that we haven't yet touched on? I'm sure there, are likely a few, but anybody have anything to add in this regard?
So most issues come from a lack of knowing, education,
Yeah.
knowledge, and really just unfamiliar, really being unfamiliar with it. And so for us, one of the things is we find, again, as often as possible, if you could communicate it clearly, walk alongside somebody and do that, that helps. But I say some of the other, you know, challenges that we've seen with technology or misconceptions is, oh, you're just trying to do this to exclude a certain part of the community. Oh, we have a huge generational change in our 55 and better community, and oh, you're just excluding us. No, that the reality is we're all the same neighborhood. When it's all said and done, our fees are going to the same, community that we agreed to live in, the community we fell in love with, that the home that we love. And so sometimes technology feels as though it's an exclusion when the reality is it's opposite. If anything, it should be promoting, hey, let me share this with my neighbor. I can't wait to show them. Look at what we can do now here at our community. Look at what did you know that you can, register for, renting the clubhouse for your grandchild's, birthday party, the beautiful clubhouse that your association fee goes towards. I can do that from my phone, the same phone that I Uber Eats and ordered, and watched YouTube on and did all those things and see Facebook. The reality is look, you can do it. It's here on the website. You fill out the form, you can pay here. Like all of those things, removing the fear from it, allowing it to build the conversation, allowing it to build bridges and not build fences is critically important. And
if I could
so, yeah.
kind of tag on to what Anthony's saying, that this reminds me, a gentleman that I used to work with always had a saying. I don't know that it was original to him, so I can't give credit to where it comes from exactly. But he always used to say that the problem with communication is the illusion that it's actually happening. And so, when we're implementing technologies, we cannot over communicate. Get it out there. Education. Just keep sending the information, and that's kind of the key to successful implementation, getting people to use it, which is, after all, why we want to implement the technology, is we want people to use it and make their life better and easier.
Well, and
And
I
I would,
think just tying on to that as well is that, people are concerned that it's safe, it's secure. What information are we giving? What information are we sharing? What is going to be done with it? Getting all of those questions answered ahead of time by communicating, the plan and what kind of information you're going to need to get this started and how it's going to impact the assessments and the community overall and all of those things, all come together, of course, with all those fears and challenges and misconceptions, of course,
that's
that
huge.
these, and there are companies that are selling our information, and so we're hearing about it every single day. Those are questions that you ask your vendor that you're going to communicate. Gosh, we're only using these pieces, it's not going to be unsafe. It's not going to be unsecure. We have all of these other, layers involved that are going to protect you while you're using these things.
That's such an important point, Cathi. Thank you for bringing that up. And I want to stick with you for 1 minute and jump into some of the success that you've had maybe recently, implementing technology. Is there like an example you can give us? What made it so successful?
Yes. when
Let's
I
get to
was
the
coming
fun
through the
part of the
airport
conversation.
yesterday. This is
Oh,
totally unrelated, but
oh, okay.
this facial recognition thing, I don't know how many of you have had to go through that right now, but we're all getting our TSA approval and we're going through the TSA lines, and this facial recognition is taking a picture of us, and it says it deletes the picture after you've been approved to go through the line. And it gives you all this information right there. But talk about a sneak up thing. We all knew it was coming, but there it is in front of our face, all
Right.
the time. In our world, of course, implementations of videos, photos, videos of the candidates talking, or the boards talking about the impact of a decision in the community, why to vote yes, why to vote no, what happens if we vote no, adding those videos. Like Anthony said, a lot of our communities are learning by video. We're reaching them. They can watch it at midnight. They can watch it anytime during the day. We all have access to technology. All of our schedules are different. And so, some of these fun things that we're adding as layers, even to online voting, which is exciting anyway, but adding the opportunity to add photos and pictures and videos and all of this information that technology is making available for us to bring that message to the community. And I think managers are really excited learning that there's so much more to it that you can use, and you can convey that message in so many different ways.
Anthony, how about you? Is there an example of a recent tech implementation or something that was really successful you'd like to share?
Yeah, there's a lot actually that's going on. I'm going to come back to this, but I'm going to mention it now. There's a
Okay.
lot happening in the world of artificial intelligence and AI that's really exciting, and a lot of things that we're seeing. And the chances are, a lot of the advertisements you're seeing today are coming, they're being generated by AI, understanding what's happening in the world. And so I'm going to come back to that thought, but I'll
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
a really good case study or a good moment that I've had technology happen actually has to be when I was a community manager of a 55 and better community. And let me tell you, what a ride. I loved it. That's one of my favorite types of communities. I've done high rise, I've been a portfolio manager. There isn't anything I haven't managed. But here at this lifestyle community, we inherited these retaining walls. These retaining walls were failing on the property. This is actually a story that has to do with the Falcon Group. One of the reasons why I love the Falcon Group. So I called in experts. There was an ad hoc committee to understand how important do we need to address this wall? How dangerous is it? In fact, some people's backyards were dependent on that retaining wall being there. In fact, there was a stretch of like over 20 or 30 homes that lived on this retaining wall. And so, hey, like we're starting to see bulges in it. Like what's happening? All this overgrowth. Somebody should do something about it. And I said, hey, we actually need to know, is this structurally safe? What's going on? So we had the Falcon Group come out. They met with our board of directors, and then an ad hoc committee was created to actually do deep diving and research. So the Falcon Group, with pictures, right, with the beautiful charts that they created, were able to clearly communicate where the wall's integrity weren't the strongest. And thankfully, the wall wasn't in full failure, and they discovered that quickly. But having the experts come on the ground, do an understanding, and then get this, there were some quick decisions that needed to be made. I called my contact at the Falcon Group and I said, hey, I'm meeting with this ad hoc committee. Can somebody get on and talk this report with us real quick right now? They said, absolutely. We get on a video call. I put it on the TV in the clubhouse, and we're now having a full conversation about, hey, we saw that in picture, 3A, we see this growth. Should we be removing this tree? Is it growing too close to the retaining wall? Is this something, that we should be concerned about? Hey, what about this river? We see like the little waters, coming in the stream is really close to that retaining wall. Could that ruin the integrity? And all over video, what would have traditionally taken weeks, we were able to come to a decision in a matter of an hour simply because they were able to get on, share their screen, answer these important questions, and everybody can see it at the same time. It's not one person coming and saying, hey, I had a talk with the engineer and they said this. Well, I want to hear it for myself, right? There's 20 people on this ad hoc committee. No, no, no. We all heard it. We were able to record it so we could play it back. Somebody took notes during the meeting, and what traditionally would take weeks, again, in 1 hour, we were able to decide, okay, we don't need to do a full stream restructure. We can now, this ad hoc committee suggested to the board what the plan was to address this retaining wall. That would have been impossible without technology. That would have been impossible without the high definition pictures that they had taken, without the beautiful drawings that they sent with it to show us where the concerns were. And so the case study for us, when it comes to implementing technology, for me, that's one of the shining examples of, hey, instead of taking months to answer this question, no, let's get the right people in the room. Let's have the good conversation, and then let's understand it. And guess what? Those images, we were able to share it with all 30 or 40 homeowners who were concerned that, hey, I might lose my backyard here because of the retaining wall. No, so in one fell swoop, in less than a month, quick decisions got made. They help us find the right vendors to, do stream relocation and to figure out which trees needed to come down. And we were able to make that decision much faster, as opposed for us waiting, taking 6 months to 8 months. But really, it's about partnering with the right people,
Right.
implementing technology in its appropriate way, campaigning it and showing people what's happening, quickly making decisions, and getting the community safe again, getting the community where it should be.
David, I wanted to ask you about, next about a
Yeah,
successful
I'm actually
implementation.
gonna piggyback.
Right.
Marcy's gonna
Go for
piggyback
it.
on
I'm
what Anthony
sorry,
was
I hope I
saying.
didn't take it from Dave.
So,
That was perfect.
I think it was the author Jim Collins that said, you need to get the right people on the bus. And I don't know if something has been my added to it, but they got to be in the right seat. And so, we've been talking about EV chargers, but I'm just now in the early stages. I wish I could say it was successful, but we're still in the early stages, so we're yet to see as what's going on. But a project that's in my office right now that I'm most excited about is actually a solar energy project. We had an HOA come to us and said, "Hey, we're using solar heater pool now, but we want to, hey, what makes the most sense? Do we go back with that? Do we go back with the traditional heater for our pool and then put in photovoltaic and do something with that energy electric wise?" And so that we're just in the early stages of doing that analysis. But where the technology has gone, I was first involved in solar energy back in the late 80s. And the changes, our panel efficiencies have dramatically increased. Panel quality has dramatically increased. Um, we're still at the cusp of whether it really makes sense versus a demonstration technology, but that's well beyond the scope of this meeting today. But the key is, you can't hire, just, the Acme General Contracting Company to install these panels. There are people out there that understand, and they do it on a day in, day out basis. And, making sure that you have the right people, like Anthony said, that's going to be the key to a successful implementation, because they've been there. They know where the traps lie, because for better or worse, they've gone through them with other clients. So, making sure you get the right people on board up front, make sure that you're not going to be the test case, and that you're benefiting from someone else's experience.
Well, and I think, taking on to that, David, is that there's always references and resources out there. So I'm sure that, yeah, a community that comes to you asking these questions, you can, connect them with someone who's already gone through this project or is thinking about it, so they can get those questions answered firsthand. And what was the experience? How did they communicate it to their community? We're asked every day to provide those references to our clients. And, we love doing it because we don't have any unhappy clients, of course, unless they don't get seated on the board.
Well, and that's good. I'll say this too. I first met Cathi with Vote-HOA-Now pre-pandemic, right? Pre what changed the world forever. And I was like, oh, this is great. This is something I don't know how or when we could implement it. And then unfortunately what happened during, during, COVID and all of that, people weren't able to leave home. Technology, we started implementing Vote HOA Now at a lot of our communities, at some of, going back and forth, having Cathi come in and explain it. And one of the things that was critically important is people couldn't leave their home. It now became a thing where Cathy's technology, where people are staying home and being safe, was able to be implemented at a much better rate, much better for clients, for everyone's safety. And so even on the safety side there, like, huge that technology, and Cathi was able to do that for us.
I do have one
Well, and
question.
I think too, seeing managers do their meetings virtually and staying home and no late night driving at 10 p.m., leaving a meeting. I mean, just think of all of the things that it's brought us. You're not having meetings in people's homes anymore, or, at local events where the school wants to close and the janitors are sweeping around you. And, we're making,
Yep.
and more people are coming to listen. They're getting involved in their communities.
We do have one question. I said, we really weren't going to take audience questions, but I want to make sure that people understand really, the answer to this question, because we're talking about it and it's important. But we have Nicholas who says, we're in a large community with 760 residents. Changing some rules in the bylaws is almost impossible because we need 3/4 of the owners to sign and reach a quorum. Is there any electronic method we could use to change this? Any electronic way to vote in meetings?
Yes, we are running document amendment votes, membership votes all the time, quite successfully. To be honest, the only reason, that we are so successful is because we have a very good process. We come highly trusted. We are the industry experts, and we're able to send information every 2 to 3 days. So no matter what, we've always got a fresh email in front of your face on your computer or your phone. And when you've got a few minutes, you just follow those few steps. And it could be fun if they had a video to watch. Why? A lot of boards will go 2 to 3 years, running an amendment, and we are seeing them close sometimes in 90 days, 6 months, which is unheard of in our prior life before COVID. We'd run, knocking door to door, several thousands of homes to see if they would sign a ballot or a proxy or something, to help us.
We have a question from Deborah, which we're not going to answer here. I'll just let you guys know. It says, are there any attorneys that will weigh in on this discussion? We will have a panel for all the legislative updates and process and all of that good stuff at 1:30. So later in the day, it's the same link you guys registered with. Come back and join us then. You're also really encouraged to connect with any of the panelists and the folks, the sponsors, the experts that we have involved in the day. So I believe we will have, an evaluation form where you guys can opt into being contacted by some of the folks that you're looking for some more information from. I want to round out this amazing conversation with some just kind of future outlook. So we talked about some of the challenges, some of the successes, some of the tools that are making really waves right now and that we need to be talking about. But I want to know, is there any kind of technology or trend that you guys are most excited to see mature in the market? I know, we talked a little bit about AI, but, David, you talked a little bit about solar. I know it's not certainly new, but I imagine, from the 80s, first working on it, it's, come a long way. Cathi, you too. So
If I could jump in there on that then, because that's kind of where, to me, what I see most exciting for me, the technology coming is, technology unfortunately sometimes has a rep of, a job loss, taking away people's jobs. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. As a matter of fact, the technology I'm most excited about are things that I call force multipliers, where we're able to supplement and actually make our human employees and staff more effective. Things, for example, one of the things that stands out in my mind, like motion sensors in the pool area, and being able to, send that off. And so instead of having someone having to, walk through or watch cameras and that kind of stuff, being able to pick that information up. I've been in many guardhouses where, they have pictures up in the guardhouses of people that shouldn't be let on site. I'm sure mine might be in there a few, but that's a different story. But some of the facial recognition that Cathy's talking about, that technology is out there, that it pops. and to really be able to help the guards who have almost thankless job really be more productive. Going back to the EV technology, you're limited in your infrastructure. There's some technology now that is becoming much more cost effective, that we've been taken from more commercial industrial applications, where we're able to do load shedding and load sharing, and smart technology where we know, hey, this big load's turned on, I've got to turn off my EV charger. Hey, now, and this is thinking more in the single family home, the dryer's off. So now I can turn on my EV charger. So that's the technology that I'm most excited to see out there, that, things that are definitely force multipliers.
Cathi, Anthony.
Go ahead, Anthony.
Okay, well, I mean, there's so many. So I'm in the world of, how can we make a manager's job easier? How can we make things easy for the board of directors? And so look, from interactive reserve studies to interactive, get ready for this. I sat through a conversation really exciting about tree and shrub reserve studies for some of the larger communities, and understanding which ones are distressed and putting together a 5-year plan. And that was great. But I would say the thing that, and between all the camera technologies and sensors and all the things that will make life safe, I think is incredibly wonderful. And I love seeing those things happen. But the one, and I mentioned it earlier, is AI. I think that AI is going to forever change the way we communicate. Now, we at First Service Residential are very careful how we implement AI. Not all AIs are built the same. Not all AIs are built with safety of mind first. And so, for us as a management company, we've actually recently put a huge focus on securely building our own AI system for the communities we manage. And we're in the process of rolling it out, whether it's, our AI program called HODA or Cyan. How can we make life simplified? Remember, that's the goal. If the majority of your life is focused on serving your community and you're passionate about that, that is exciting. We want you to be passionate. We want to make it easier and faster for you. But if you're doing it as something, as a secondary thing, and if you're still working full time and still and you want to be a part of the community, technology can make life easier. We believe AI can do that. And so some of the ways that we're doing that is, how can we easily get information that's needed securely to the communities we manage? And one of the really exciting things, and I won't talk really too much about it, I'll mention it, it is public, that it's out there. But we've also been significantly testing working with Alexa. And how cool is it that I could be in my kitchen and ask relevant questions about my community or how much I owe, and for it to securely be able to spit back all the information I need? Or, hey, what time is the clubhouse closed? Oh, I don't remember, what website was this on? Where was it? No, hey, why don't you just talk to Alexa? And because you're registered with the program, it would be able to give that information back to you securely. And so that's something that is exciting. We're still in the phase of testing, especially on the Alexa side, but there's other implementations we're seeing that's going to help people obtain information so that they can make the best decision faster. And that's, again, life simplified. That's who we are here at First Service Residential.
Yeah, great point, everyone. And I just want to close by saying, technology is here to stay, and it's not going away. It's only getting better. We're learning more and more about it by listening to industry professionals talk about it and what's working and maybe what's not working. We're going to hear some of those, sad stories too. So don't be afraid to look at new options for your community. Don't be afraid to educate yourselves or look for resources, and look to those industry professionals that we've got on panels today and on the other panels that you're going to see today to help you make those hard decisions in your community, and then ask them about communication and rollout. You should be able to partner with them on all of those things.
You guys gave us some great insights and also ideas on how that communication can not only be effective, but exciting. and build that kind of emotional connection to what's coming, which I think sometimes is the hardest part. I think a lot of times people have this misconception, if you will, going into a new implementation, and they say, oh, my residents aren't going to be able to do that, or they don't answer the phone, so they're not going to be able to use this new technology, or it's already kind of dismissed before we try. And I hear that a lot. And so I hope that for the audience and the people who are here today, you guys have some, instilled confidence in what you can accomplish for your communities and for your clients and for the residents that, not only are hearing about this technology because it exists. It's here whether we like it or not. It's here today, but also how you can effectively implement and help them build really positive experiences around using the technology. So I encourage you guys, we're going to, at the end of the day today, for all of you who attended, we're going to be sending you an email with an evaluation form. You can opt in to be contacted by any or all of these amazing experts that we've had on. Not just, this is our very first panel of the day. I think it was fantastic. I know you guys can't give a round of applause, but I'll give a round of applause for these amazing panelists. Yeah, there's Jeff. And, I hope that I encourage you to reach out, to opt in to be contacted by them, to have, keep these conversations going, ask the questions that you have. Jeff's going to be on in a minute with Marcy answering some more questions that you guys had pre-submitted ahead of time. We have another panel at 10:30 today. Jeff, if you could flash on the agenda really quickly. I just want to make sure people know what's coming today, what they can expect before we say goodbye to everyone. And yeah, amazing. So this was emerging industry technologies and trends. 10:30, we have saving money for your association, which is going to be incredible. And then later, for those of you asking about some of the kind of more legal aspects of what what we have going on in the industry, we're going to have some legislative, but kind of behind the scenes, if you will, about the legislative process and current legislative update. And I just want to say a big thank you to our sponsors, all these amazing companies that are on the screen, but in particular, Vote-HOA-Now and the Falcon Group for making this session possible. Vote-HOA-Now, you guys are our presenting sponsor, really helping us make this whole day possible, which is our inaugural event, and really, really special to be partnering with these incredible businesses who are, really making big impact in our industry. And then with that, City Quiet and Plastridge, Kay Bender-Rembaum, who's going to be, representing that legal side of the conversation later today, A1 Appliance, Hotwire, Oracle Profitability, the Paving Ladies, South State Bank, TWG Enterprises, and WRG. So thank you to everybody for making this possible. And I hope to catch up with you guys around 10:30 for the next panel. Stick around though, because we're going to be answering some of your questions live here with Jeff and Marcy. So thank you, Cathi, David, and Anthony. We appreciate you so much.
Thank
We'll
you
talk
guys.
Thanks.
And I could attest,
Yeah,
I've
it's
worked
been
with
really
every one
fun.
of these folks on screen right now, and they are fantastic. So
They
if
sure are.
if you're using folks you're happy with now, fine, don't do anything. But if you're not, these are some great folks on here, and give them a shot.
Awesome. See you guys later.
Thank you, guys. I see Marcy joined us as well. Marcy is also at the DC panel. And you able to start your camera there, Marcy? And while you're doing that, there was a question earlier. By the way, I'm Jeff Solomon. I work with ACE as well as with Kay Bender-Rembaum, as many of you do know. I recognize a lot of names. Thank you for joining us today. There she is. Hey, Marcy.
Hi.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you, Marielle, as well. Deborah asked a question earlier that is kind of legal in nature, that before I start chatting with Marcy, I want to just quickly address that anything that I say, anything Marcy says, anything the experts earlier said, anything the attorneys later are going to say should never, ever be considered as legal advice. This is all strictly educational in nature, informational in nature, nothing more. So please, if you have any further questions, it's always best to contact your association counsel. So just please keep that in mind. And Deborah had asked a question about whether Zoom could take the place, for example, of an in-person meeting when we're not
in emergency power situations, such as when we had that during COVID, when we were not meeting in public. And again, I'm not an attorney, Marcy's not an attorney, but this is a panel about technology. So just to briefly touch upon that, Deborah and others, it's always best to ask your association counsel about that. But the way we understand it in terms of what attorneys are saying, and attorneys will have varying opinions, keep that in mind. No attorney has, they're not all going to have the same exact opinions. But when you're not in emergency power situations such as now, typically what happens is if you want to have a meeting on Zoom only, meaning most everybody is on Zoom, the board's on Zoom, the whole 9 yards, you would have also a physical meeting place at the condo, like in the clubhouse or in some sort of meeting room with a television or projector set up with the feed of the Zoom being broadcast for folks at the association who may not have access to said technology or don't know how to use Zoom or don't want to use Zoom or have crappy internet or whatever it might be. Now, Marcy would never give you crappy internet. We're going to talk about Marcy and Hotwire in just a second. But that's the general rule of thumb. But again, I'm not an attorney. Marcy's not an attorney. Ask your association counsel. Even your CAM is not an attorney most of the time. So check with your association counsel. But again, it's best to have a physical meeting location with the TV, a place for people to watch the Zoom if everything else is taking place on Zoom. I hope that makes sense. I hope that was clear. Marcy, welcome. How are things going over at the expo? What's going on?
Oh, thank you. It's great being here, and thank you for having me.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thanks for sponsoring the overtime session. And there were a few things that came up during the session. I'll just do a quick recap on that. And the one thing that I took away most notably is education and communication. Anytime you're implementing anything that's new, technology-wise, on an association property or association related in general, inform, inform, inform. I also learned, and we all also just learned, that changing the ways of informing has matured. And what I mean by that is in the past, you'd open up and just read a book or find an article or call somebody. Okay. Marcy, today, what's happening is we find that a lot of folks are using videos. They're watching YouTube, how to do this, how to do that. In your world, not just as Hotwire, but Marcy has the highest designation you can get as a manager. Marcy has the PCAM. So Marcy's done just about anything and everything in this business, both as a service provider, as a manager, as a consultant, an author, an expert. Marcy does it all. In your experience, what do you feel is the best way for people to use communication and education and technology that you're familiar with to inform their residents? What have you seen? What have you done?
Okay, well, I'm also on the board of directors of my HOA as well. So
And you're still smiling?
Yes. Yes.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
And I mean, over the years, technology has evolved. I mean, I remember the days of having to hand deliver newsletters under the door in my high rises that I manage. But nowadays we have so many different ways to communicate. Everyone is required in Florida now to have a website. So very important that you get your residents accustomed to going to that website to inform them of the most recent, most current, up-to-date news. Email blasts. I mean, we receive ongoing communication. Another thing that Hotwire offers is a community portal, which is a dedicated television channel, which has been my game changer throughout the years when I was managing properties. And there's just so many ways now that you can utilize the internet to inform your residents. And then if you have a platform, like a management software platform that has an app, you can, and we also at Hotwire, we have our own app where we're able to communicate with the residents. Apps are a great way to communicate with your residents, and they can sign up for notifications as they're occurring.
Yeah, that is some great news. Then that's, yes, everybody seems to be heading in that direction for the most part. So thank you for that wonderful insight. Infrastructure growth was another thing that came up earlier, but that tends to be, as David Riddle mentioned, sort of a slow and steady growth when it comes to infrastructure, because construction infrastructure, that takes time. Okay, that takes time to implement. Whereas the soft technology, like what you just talked about, that happens at a much faster rate. So that's a great insight there. So, Marcy, I saw you on as an audience member earlier as well, and this is something I think you teach a class on, if I'm not mistaken. In fact, you did it for ACE and even KBR at one point in the past, and that's AI. AI has a love-hate relationship by many. Some people love it, some people fear it, some people just live with it. We're all on social media for the most part. We never know if a picture is real or not, it seems. There are little things to look for. When it comes to community associations, and in this realm, in our industry, whether you're a service provider, a manager, management company, whatever it is, board member, what are some of the ways you see AI being used? And do you think it is going to decrease, increase? What do you see happening? What are the trends that you are seeing?
I'm seeing that there's an increase in AI being used in smart home automation, improving efficiencies. I would say that being a manager, don't be afraid of it. You can even create an entire strategic plan. It's all about the prompts. And once you learn how to use ChatGPT and even drafting an agenda, something simple like that, you can utilize AI to help guide you and communicate with your residents through AI. And it will help improve your efficiencies 100%.
And creative candy is the alliteration term that I like to use, because you just take a concept, you take an idea, how do I do this? Or write me a brief article about getting people to come to attend our board meeting on December 17th. And it comes up with something, then you can go ahead and alter it as needed. So there are a multitude of ways it can be used within your association. Have you seen, switching gears a little bit, now we're going to talk a little bit about some of the questions that were submitted before the event during the registration process. So what I did was, now there are a lot of them that I'm not going to touch because many of them are legal in nature. Don't want to go down that road. As I said earlier, you don't see the ESQ after my name. So we're going to skip most of those for later. And hopefully we can get some of the attorneys to Michael and the panel later to answer some of those. But some of the things that come up the most often are, how can we inform our residents even better? Can you over communicate? I first want to address, and then I want to ask Marcy the same question from a PCAM point of view. I used to manage as well, but I couldn't hold a candle to Marcy's. Marcy has much more experience than I do when it comes to managing on site for a much greater period of time, even though we're the same age, about the same age. We each started when we were 10, by the way. So that's why we're looking so fabulous. But with regards to that, let me just find my place here. We were talking about, Marcy, I lost my place on my paper. We were just going to be talking about what was it? I literally lost my place.
Communication. And can you over communicate?
There it is.
With your residents.
So David earlier mentioned that you cannot over communicate. Thank you. I have my finger on the spot now. That you cannot over communicate. The one place where I see a lot of folks over communicating, and this is to answer some of the questions on the pre-registration, is overdoing your meeting minutes, putting too much into your minutes. Marcy, would you like to address some of that, about the only way you can over communicate in your association is probably in your minutes, correct?
Exactly. The minutes should just highlight the decisions that were made. It shouldn't be a dissertation of the entire meeting.
Right. So it's just what you voted upon, new business, attendance, the whole 9 yards. You don't need an exact
motion, right?
Because when you put something on paper, that's official record, then they can hold you to that later on. If it's something you were just talking about conceptually, that wasn't a done deal, that kind of a thing. So that's something to keep in mind.
Record meeting also, I would say you can utilize the recording just to take your minutes, but once the minutes have been approved, you don't want those recordings to be on record. So you want to dispose of those recordings.
Okay. That's good advice there. Another question that came up a lot when they heard about Hotwire and Marcy joining us too, community channels. How are
Before we go on to that though, can I just say that getting back to AI, there are AI meeting note takers, which can also help you capture everything that you need so you can draft efficient minutes and comprehensive minutes. So keep that in mind as well. There's different softwares now that are being offered that are AI note takers, and you can utilize them in your meetings. But getting back to the community portal, that's probably one of my favorite things. And here at Hotwire, it's like an ongoing joke, because every time we talk about the community portal, I light up, because it's definitely a game changer.
So tell us a little bit about that. Is a community portal the same as a community station? Like in the past, I'll just give you a quick example. When I was on site managing the large scale community that you're aware of, that's where we met many years ago. We had, of course, a bulk cable service agreement. Part of that bulk agreement allowed us to have a community access channel. And we're not talking just static images. We're also talking something like, for those of you of Saturday Night Live fans who are SNL fans, Wayne's World was on a community access channel. So we had a community access channel where I was working, where we put on some videos. Residents, we took their areas of expertise, like we had a former grocery produce buyer for a large supermarket chain. So we did a cooking show. We broadcast our board meetings. We did all kinds of things, tennis tournaments, golf tournaments, whatever it was, club events. But we also had the static image channel where we had like upcoming meetings, events that were taking place, with just legally piped in music in the background with static images and text informing people of what was going on. Do you do that? Is it a little bit of both? Is it a website thing? Is it a TV thing? How does yours work? And what is out there for people to utilize?
Well, it is essentially a community bulletin board, and it can be catered specifically for your community, and we will help you set it up, and then you can find a volunteer that can maintain it. But it is something like, if you want to post when your next meeting is, if you have a restaurant, or if you're a country club and you want to post menus on there, I mean, you can customize it any way you'd like. And the beauty about this community channel is, especially during hurricane season, a lot of residents are glued to the television. They're watching the Weather Channel. And this is a great tool for managers to be able to utilize in communicating when it's time to take their furniture in. You can actually send priority notifications where it's on the screen and the resident has to acknowledge it by utilizing the remote. Otherwise, it doesn't go away. So they can't say, I didn't know, because that is a great way to communicate and acknowledge something that is a priority.
Okay. I want to scale back. Somebody put a question into the Q&A, and Marcy, thank you for that. Isn't Marcy a wealth of knowledge? It's unbelievable. Going back to the AI note takers, do you happen to know the names of any? We have somebody asking. If not,
Bubbles, there's Otter AI. You can just Google, and there's a whole bunch of different ones out there now.
And you mentioned Google. David Riddle earlier mentioned, or Anthony or David, they might have both mentioned that people are watching videos on how to do things now. That was another question that came up too. When it comes to researching items in everyday life, or even for community associations, how to do things. Maybe you don't have an on-site maintenance staff and you want to learn how to change a filter on something, whatever it might be, something that's not dangerous. Of course, you always want to get an expert to do something that you're not sure about. But YouTube, this is a statistical thing that we saw online recently. YouTube, which is also owned by Google, is starting to catch up and in some ways overtake research. When people are looking for things or how to do things, people are looking for the videos versus just Googling it. So that's an interesting concept, that people are now searching for audio and video aids for research versus the written word. But like Anthony mentioned earlier, you still need the written word to make these videos and to make any of these audio recordings. So that's just something to keep in mind. Let's go over to a question that we actually had this 3 or 4 times here about the voting platforms. Marcy, I know voting platform is not your area of expertise. per se, but you've utilized it like crazy with your associations, even before COVID. And on top of that, you need reliable internet service for something like that. When it comes to your traditional bulk service agreements, for example, whether it's internet, for internet, is that capable of handling something like what Vote-HOA offers?
Absolutely. And you do need a reliable internet connection in order to be able to have uploads and download speeds symmetrical, which are the same. So in order to have that, here at Hotwire, we offer a fiber optic infrastructure, and we own, operate, and install it. And it's extremely fast and it's extremely reliable, unlike coax cable, which weathers, and it's no longer future proofing for your community. So once you have that fiber, once it's in, I mean, we're now deploying 25 gig speeds, and we were the first to install fiber to the home technology. We were the first for internet service protocols and being able to provide that fast, reliable service. I know that in the past, when I had platforms that we would install at the property, and if we didn't have a reliable network, then the software just didn't work. And a lot of residents were very frustrated because they weren't on a bulk network and they were unable to utilize the software. So yes, I would say I remember years ago meeting Cathi Sleight, and I was probably one of her first customers. And being a technology buff, it was innovative to be able to have that electronic voting, and now it seems like it's become standard. And I think it's very reliable, but it's only as reliable as your internet.
That's great advice, great knowledge. We have a question that came in the Q&A that I'm going to address to you in a second. And I just want to mention, since we're talking about voting platforms, I do want to mention one thing, because this came up as well during the registration process about folks doing it themselves. Hey, I know how to make a website. I know how to manage a website. I know there are dozens or hundreds of plugins out there that can take care of voting and this, that, and the other thing. There are so many regulations out there in the statutes about what a community association voting platform must have with regards to security, privacy, all that stuff. If you were to try and do something like that yourself, you are asking for trouble, because the minute every day, for example, on your phones, all right, just about every day, you see the little bubble by your update thing where updates need to be made. And this is just one example of many about you have to update your app to the next thing to work properly with your operating system. So imagine you're trying to do something like this yourself, already having all these laws and guidelines you have to deal with to make sure that the platform is working the way it's supposed to work. On top of that, you have to make sure that every time the operating system of the phone or the platform that you're using for the website changes, you have to make sure that whatever you have implemented is going to work with that. And that something that might be working properly today may not work properly after the update. The moral of this story, leave it to an expert in the field that does this and only this. Trying to do more for less now creates more of a mess later. And you'll end up, we're having another panel later about saving money for your association. If you try to skimp, saving money and skimping are two different things, okay? If you try to skimp, you may end up costing your association much more money later on. So keep that in mind. It's always best to go to the expert. Marcy, you ready for a question that was in the Q&A here?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more thing to your point, and very good points that you made. But if you want to do this on your own, it's just not going to work. I mean, the statutes are very clear, and you have to be able to authenticate the unit owner's identity. And how are you going to do that? Rely on the experts. They've done it before, and they know how to do it, and they'll be there to support you every step of the way.
Absolutely. And we certainly don't want this to sound like a sales pitch, but we are just speaking from experience. Do not skimp when it comes to anything that can get your association or your board members in legal hot water. We have a question. Our community has a major company that has the fiber system for our homes. Is it possible, and I'm assuming that the major company is not Hotwire because of the next sentence, is it possible to add something like a Hotwire portal system that could supplement our current system? Our current system does not have a portal option that we are aware of. Now, Marcy, before you answer that, by portal option, and John, you can chime in if I am correct or incorrect, we assume you mean like a community bulletin board portal. Is that what you're referring to? But Marcy, assuming that that's correct. Okay, so can your system supplement an existing system if you're not providing the main service?
Unfortunately not. It's something that we would offer as part of our bulk contract. If you have a contract that is about to expire, we like to talk to you about 24 months out, and we would love the opportunity to be able to provide you with our portal, but it is something that runs specifically on our own network, and we would have to install our own fiber infrastructure.
Okay. And if you don't have one now, thank you, Marcy, for that. And John, if you don't have that with your current system, ask and see if it's available, because as Anthony and David and Cathi mentioned earlier, as did Marielle, new things are being added all the time. And look, I don't care how great we are at what we do. We're human. We make mistakes. Sometimes we say the wrong thing or mean one thing, say another. Sometimes what's up here is not what comes out of here. That happens. Sometimes I typed an answer too quickly to somebody earlier, and I had to clarify. Stuff happens. So maybe your rep forgot to mention to you that they now have this option available for something you already have, and they just haven't told you. So if there's something you want, if you have a wish list, contact them. Let them know you're interested. If more people are asking for this from the provider that you currently have, maybe they'll finally implement the dang thing. You never know. And if you're not happy with your current provider, as Marcy just mentioned, as you're nearing the end of your contract, give Hotwire a call, give them a chance. Marcy, how long in advance, or how much in advance should they start vetting other companies such as yourselves before the contract expires? How much lead time should there be? We know it should be a last minute thing.
Yeah, and in order to have a seamless transition, we recommend 24 months prior to the contract expiration.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
There's a lot of factors, and especially here at Hotwire, we customize and tailor the contract specific for the community, because that's all we do is serve community associations. And we want to get to know the property. We want to get to know what the residents' wants and needs are, and also the common areas, so we can help support the Wi-Fi and all the amenities there. It takes a little bit of time, and we're really excited to be able to sit down and talk to boards and managers on how we can help them.
Okay. Well, Marcy, we're going to do one more follow-up question, then I'm going to let you go. I know you have to get back. You're actually working now at the expo. I know we need to let you go, and we're going to take a 1 hour break before we get to the next panel. So folks, just before we get to this last question from John, which is a follow-up, I want to mention the same link that you used to join this session just now is the same link you'll be using for the entire day. So after I pose this final question to Marcy, I am going to share the screen and show you the times of the next two panels. So Marcy, John's follow-up is, can your company take the current infrastructure that is in place and connect your system to it? My guess is that it depends on who owns the lines underneath, correct?
Yeah, we don't want to utilize another provider's system. We would prefer that we install our own. We're not going to, when we come in, we just leave everything there. We don't touch it, and we build our own. And we actually prefer that, because this way, say there's a fiber cut, which that happens sometimes. Contractors fail to call before they dig, and we want to be able to service our own fiber with our own technicians that are on Hotwire payroll and not have to rely on others.
That makes a world of sense, and we thank you for that great information. Marcy, again, I know you have to get back. What is the best way to reach Marcy, Hotwire, both, one or the other? what is the preferred way to get in touch to inquire about
Uh,
how Hotwire might be able to help their association?
Okay, well, you can reach me at Marcy, Marcy Kravit at hotwiremail.com, or you can call me on my personal cell, which is 954-646-9309. Or you can Google my name and go to my website, which is marcykravit.com.
How apropos. And we'll also make sure that everybody's contact information is in the post event evaluation at the end of the day. We'll send an email out to everybody who attended, whether you attended one or all three. Everybody will get an email with an evaluation and contact information. So Marcy, thank you very much. I know you have a full day ahead of you, so I don't want to hold you up. Hop back to it and we'll
It's a
chat later.
pleasure, and thank you for having me. And I want to just say to everybody, don't be afraid of technology. It's there to support you. It's there to help you. And in the long run, you'll say, why didn't I do this before? Once you jump in and do the deep dive.
It's the deep dive that can scare a lot of people, but it's not, like Marcy just said, it's not as daunting as it sounds. So Marcy, thank you very much. We'll chat later. Thanks for
you all have a great day.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Have a great event. And
Thank
folks,
you.
Before we take our break for about an hour, I just want to show you the screen one more time. At 10:30, we'll have a Saving Money for Your Association panel, and then at 1:30 after lunch, legislative process, current legislative update. Use the same links you used to join this one for those two. And something to keep in mind, if you join us for the Saving Money webinar panel, remember that the title of that panel can be a little bit deceiving. Sometimes in order to save money, you're going to have to spend a little bit. You're going to have to do a bunch now to reap the rewards and the savings later. So just go in with an open mind, because when you hear some of the things that they're going to be speaking about, it's not like clipping coupons or looking for the cheaper way of doing things. Yes, that exists. That's out there. But sometimes you have to spend some, hire that extra consultant or expert to make sure that everything is being done right the first time, so that you don't have to do it again, do it all over again later. I have some horror stories that I will share with you a little bit later about that as well. So folks, we will see you all in about an hour. You'll also get a reminder email that we're starting in about 45 minutes.